The voice of women, the voice of women, 91.7.
Our first speaker is Fatai Owosheni. Fatai Owosheni is a former commissioner of police in Lagos State. Thank you very much, Fatai, for joining us. How is Ibadan?
Good evening, Tom. Ibadan is good. We are fine here.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Other speaker is a woman who just says it the way it is. She has, I call her unapologetically Layla. Layla St. Matthew Daniel is an advocate against domestic violence and abuse. Hi, Layla. How are you?
I'm fine. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Thank you very much. We'll just go straight to the business of today. So I'm going to give Fatai Owosheni about 5 to 7 minutes to just talk to us on the topic of today. Rape is a very serious issue. And Fatai, I know that you did a fantastic work in all the states that you worked as a serving commissioner of police. I remembered the two incidents that came to my mind was the Queen's College incident and the other school where they assaulted students. So, and I know you're very hot on this. So I just want to give you the floor for the next 5 to 7 minutes to tell us, what you have to say about the rape culture and how we need to combat this as Nigerians. Thank you, sir.
I want to say I'm happy that last week I just stumbled on it. John having sent me that invitation. And even this morning, the one we had that was men-only discussion, it was quite educative. It was a robust one. And the discussions so far, I know quite a number of people had focused and it has oscillated on certain things. One is certain practices of behavior that the female gender do that could make them to be vulnerable. People have also discussed about the adequacy or inadequacy of the law with regards to these crimes. While some people have also mentioned certain and some religious practices that seem in their own interpretation to be encouraging this social menace. But the thing is, it is a crime. And when it comes to crime, there is no way, and it's unacceptable for me to situate any crime and colorate any crime religiously, politically, or ethnically. Once it is a crime and it is forbidden by the law, it remains a crime. This is real, and that is why we're talking about it. And it is sad that it's even more rampant among the elites in some of those eyebrow areas. And we, in most cases, we don't even hear of this. They are swept under the carpet for one reason or the other. I have mentioned it before. Female gender living with guardians, or even some males, some young men living with guardians, living with benefactors, living with religious leaders. They keep on molesting them. And because of the fact that these fellows who have molesting them are either their guardians or some religious leaders or some important people in the society, they cannot talk, the culture of silence. And the fact that if they speak out at all, they will be condemned because the people that are molesting them are people that, they will call very big people in the society who can upturn things, who can change the narrative to their advantage, or for one reason, for one benevolence or the other, that they're doing for the family of the victims. And these people die in silence. The same thing with domestic violence. For some certain practices, societal stigmatization, societal comments. Women remain abused in their marriages, and it is a culture of silence, conspiracy of silence, because our mothers will say, oh no, don't come back home, you must remain there. And this goes on and goes on. And some of these fellows even do sleep with housemates right in the house where their wives live. And anything that the housemaid wants to say out, they will quickly upturn things to their advantage. This is not fair. Apart from the fact that it's a crime, I see people that engage in this as sick people. They are very, very sick. There is nothing other than that. And of course, when people also talk about whether the punishment is adequate or not adequate, I think we have enough laws in this country to punish all these things. It's just that we don't put them into practice. It's like the law on bigamy. I don't know if anyone had used it and practiced it before. It's a country where we just create laws with some of them redundant that we don't even test. So the thing for me is that I'm happy that in this climate, people are bold enough now, especially some of our women are bold enough now to speak out, unlike before that women can't get their voice in this part of the world. So the more everybody speak out and we carry the other sex, the male gender along, I think the more we speak out, the more we'll be able to correct this. We need to do a lot of education. We need to get people to follow cases of this nature to their logical conclusion. And all those issues of, oh, a father in the Lord cannot do this. This imam cannot do this. This is a highly respected person. Is because they want to blackmail him for money or whatever. Our focus should be getting people educated, following things to logical conclusion, and how we can all come out together. The pandemic in Nigeria, I won't say it is coronavirus, even all the movements that so many NGOs have been making, the movement should be targeted on how do we reduce illiteracy or eradicate illiteracy? How do we fight poverty? Because those two things are also some very strong factors that are behind people not speaking out, because people even don't know how to go about it. And I can stop at this stage as an introductory remark. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. That was Fatai Owosheni, former Commissioner Police, Lagos State, who just spoke politely to us there. I've seen a few comments in there. You spoke about silence, and silence being a big issue that we need to break down in this part of the world that we are in. In case you're just joining us, this is the rape culture and how to combat it. Conversations 2.1, because we had the first part last week. And this is a safe space conversation where we discuss everything that needs to be discussed in addressing the pandemic, the rape pandemic. We have two lots of pandemic in Nigeria. The whole world has the COVID-19 pandemic, but in Nigeria is a COVID-19, in fact, three lots of pandemic. We have the COVID-19 pandemic, we have the rape pandemic, and we have corruption pandemic. So, but today we're talking about the rise in rape and how we need to address it. I'm going to call on a woman. I've asked a few people to join this conversation because Leila St. Matthew Daniel just says it the way it has to be said without, she has no apologies about what she says. She's an advocate against domestic violence and abuse. I know she wears a lot of caps. She runs a center where, you get counseling and you get therapy. But today, she's here to speak to us on the rape culture and how to combat it. Leila, I give you the floor. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and good evening, everybody. Mr. Owosheni, we spoke very briefly. We never met during the Queen's College saga with the biology teacher and everything. I headed the panel then. Well, you see, the rape culture is so pervasive, and he has said so many things, you understand. He has touched on so many things, but you see, it's the attitude of the people. Boys will be boys. She was drunk. She wore a skimpy dress. She did this, she did that. Whilst those areas may have some, positivity, but the thing is this, the rape culture is very pervasive. It's embedded in the way we think. And as I said, rape culture is the social environment that allows sexual violence to be normalized and justified. We're always finding an excuse. We are always trying to justify the reason why there's a rape culture, the reason why there's violence and abuse, and it's fueled by the persistent gender inequalities. No matter what, there is a relationship with this gender inequality situation that over the years, people have refused to understand that there is nothing to be afraid about the thought about gender equality. There is nothing to be afraid about it because it is for both male and both female. But it is the fear, the innate cultural fear that it means that women are being given the power, will be given the power. One man even said at the National Assembly that, does it mean that I have to take permission from my wife before I can even see another woman or begin to date? Or begin to, they brought it down to their pervasive nature. They brought it down to their inordinate desires. Do you understand? And not wanting to accept a lot of things. So it's connected with gender inequalities and the attitude about gender and sexuality. Do you understand? Every single day, we have the opportunity to fight against this, but then we always hold ourselves back. And I bring it down again to the fact of what Mr. Owosheni said, that the laws are there. Yes, the laws are there, but they are not being implemented. Who are not implementing them? It's both the home base, because culture comes from the home base. It comes from our communities. It comes from the home. I remember when there was that incident about school children breaking up about 2 years ago around Ikoyi, and the girls were practically going to be raped on the streets by their counterpart boys, because rape always begins when they are young. They began raping when they are young, and they felt they could get away with it because most times they do get away with it because of the culture of silence and the fact that parents interfere on the path of justice. When they identified 3 out of the boys were taken to court. Even Lagos State was involved with it and everything, although I don't know, till now we're still on it. The mothers of these boys actually were very antagonistic against the 2 girls, that if not for the, what's the lady's name again? If not for her coming in and standing like a ferocious lion, to stand there and say these girls will not be touched, practically they would have stripped them, because they had blades, they had knives, to cut off their pants or to cut off their trouser in broad daylight, 4 p.m. in the afternoon. And the mothers of these boys were actually very antagonistic and were very hostile, as if the destiny of their son, there were 3, has been messed up with. But what about the destiny of those girls? You see, we don't even begin to know, and I'm glad Dr. Muyiwa is on, because I know him very well. Dr. Muyiwa plays 2 roles of the professional doctor and is my pastor too, long time ago and still tomorrow. Now, the fact remains that there are psychological flashbacks for these girls. Even women that get raped, if a woman gets raped, it is an assault to her very innate being. It doesn't matter if she's sexually active or not. Not to talk about a young girl. It destroys practically their lives unless they have therapy. Now, who stands in the path of justice again? The police. The police, I know they have been trained. I know they've been given all kinds of training, a lot of them, gender desk and everything. But the horrific news that comes out of the police station is terrible. Only last week, a 14-year-old in part of the Southeast was raped by their neighbor's son or something. And they went to the police station, and the policemen practically chased them away from the police station and were nasty to the mother of the girl and everything. A group that I belong with, a group of families that has NGOs, CIOs and everything, has tentacles all over Nigeria. We had to push them in. You must have read it, so we had to push, galvanize to begin to go in. The police will stand in there. The police, some of them will say to them, is it not something you do before? Isn't it? Who puts them as judge and jury there? They're supposed to protect the citizens. And they say the police is my friend. The police is not my friend when it comes to them interfering where rape and domestic violence is involved. It's not, they are not my friend. And I don't know, they've had training and everything, but you see what happens is that, like in everything, corruption, attitude and behavior, it's in the mindset. They come to their place of work, they come to their place of operation with their own mindset, fixed mindset of their own perception, their cultural biases, and what they are doing themselves. So if somebody comes to report to the policeman about rape, probably he has even raped somebody, because some of them, when they bring girls in there, they rape them because they are in your custody, whether they are guilty or not. We have a situation where it's innocent until proven guilty. I know in the French way, they say guilty until proven innocent. You understand? But we say innocent until proven guilty. And why should you now? The person is in your custody. The person is not able to do anything. You have the guns, you have the baton, you have the right to keep them behind there in the cell, and then you rape them. Because they say, after all, she'll not be virgin again. After all, this. So the police stands there. I'm not saying all, I am saying that is one of the key areas that has stood in there, because they are compromised. They will come, especially if, as Mr. Owosheni said, that some of the pervasive rape happens in the in that level that they should. When they pay them, they turn their eyes. Corruption has pervaded the justice system. When I was doing community to community 2 years ago, awareness and sensitization, because it comes straight down to that, awareness and sensitization. When we went into some communities, some men who have a conscience actually said that the ballet is at fault too as well. Because when these young girls are brought, they are the policemen, they are the judge, they are the jury, you understand? And then they won't let them report it. They will take these young people and say, okay, pay 20,000 for medical situation. Take them there. And so it continues. So my time is nearly up. So the thing is this, that once there is no penalties, and once they know they can get away with it, because of the innate human nature, when it has no set values, which comes from the home, because these boys had a mother, these men were brought up by a woman and a man too as well. So it comes down, what are we teaching? What are we showing them with their five senses? So they put it into operation, and then the system itself is corrupt. So let me hold on there for the meantime.
Thank you very much, Leila St. Matthew Daniel, advocate against domestic violence and abuse. This is Safe Space Conversations put together by Women Radio. Today we're looking at rape culture and how to combat it. Can I just quickly say that we're going to go into the question and answer session. Each and every one of us here, we are an influencer. So you are an influencer to your family, to your friends, to your colleagues, to anybody that is around you. And that means that whatever information we pick up here today, let us disseminate that information so that it would, it will keep going on and going on to the appropriate persons. At this point in time, I'm going to be taking questions and answers. Please raise your hands or drop your questions. The first comment I want to take here, because I have a question. Somebody raised it here. I'll quickly pick it up now. Garden Talk with TOS says, and this is coming to you, Leila, parenting are some of the problems we are facing. They are the ones that would hide and degrade the victims and blame the women, citing the way the victims dress or care themselves. There is, and I'm roping this question to the conversations that has been rife that girls and women need to dress properly. There's a school of thought who believe that the way women dress or girls dress is a way that tempts men. And there's another school of thought that feels the way a girl or woman dresses the man should be able to self-control, basically. So Leila, I want you to talk about that plus what a participant just mentioned. Thank you.
Okay, very briefly. I'm not going to use medical terminology, but you see, parenting is very key. I said it just before I rounded up, and she had already asked the question. What are you training the boys as well as the girls? It starts from when they are 18 months, 12, 1 year, and everything. Those character traits that come out, you must now work on them. You don't wait until they are 3 or 4 or say things. I hear a lot of it. When they get a little bit older, they'll be okay. No, their character is being formed from that point, and they will know what they can get away with and what they can't get away with. And then some of them are abused even. Abuse is in different forms, and internalized anger brings out innate reactions much later on. Now, coming back to the dressing aspect, there are 2 schools of thought where I am concerned. A baby, what is she wearing? Nothing. A school child with no breast and everything, what is she wearing? Shapeless, whatever it is. Those kind, you see, there are 2 schools of thoughts where I'm concerned. Those kind of situation, there is a reason why they feel that they can get away with such things. And I keep saying some of them are diabolical. They have a diabolical intention. Now, the other flip side is that the way you dress too, in some certain situations, matter. You are going to visit a man, and half of your boobs is already out. You are wearing very tight dress that shows all the backside and contours and everything. A man is designed to be aroused by the eyes. That is why they say, if your eyes is causing you to sin, close those eyes. But you see, I believe that God created the human being, whether you are a faith-based Muslim, Buddhist, whatever it is, if for procreation, sex is for procreation, if desire, want was not put in place, there will be no sex. Because when we do not have desire for something, we don't do it. We don't want to do it. So the man is external. And if you come to see a man and certain things are being exposed, your breast, your bottom, your everything, instinctively he becomes aroused. Then comes the control. It is the control that he has been brought up with, the control, the values, how to, take control of himself, how to honor himself and respect himself and the other party, that will stop him from behaving like an animal. It is animals, when you see the animal kingdom, it is animals that will have the feeling and then want to, carry on with it. So for me, 2 ways. There is nothing to do with the way a woman dresses, the way a baby dresses or anything. A rapist is a rapist is a rapist. Why he rapes, there are different schools of thought. But again, the way you dress in certain situations could actually get you into trouble with a man who has no control.
Thank you very much. Fatai Oshene, do you agree, disagree before I take other questions?
To me, there is no justification for rape and domestic violence, just as I've said. No matter how a female dresses, I think every man should be disciplined enough to control himself. We're not animals, and that is why I say people that do it are sick people. They live in the world of animals. We have different views with regards to this. Some people believe that, yes, men can be aroused by certain way people dress or something like that. It is a no to me, and I will stand on that. But I must also emphasize who are actually the problems with regards to not getting justice. I think our mothers, the female folks, who lead people to the police station to go and beg to say, we don't want these cases to be prosecuted. The mothers, I would start with the case at Ikoyi, where when students finished their secondary school examination, the WAEC or whatever, and those boys jumped on these innocent girls. Who are the people that led the agitation to say, oh, leave them, don't destroy them and whatever? Their mothers led those things, even when they went to the police station. The same thing with the case that happened at Unilag at Akoka, where those boys were prosecuted. Their mothers, followed by their fathers, the rich people will come out and lead that agitation to say, no, we don't want these matters to go to court. I am aware, and I do know, and I will not dispute it, that we have problem with the law enforcement agencies, the police. But I think the police has gone too far beyond that. And I would cite examples. When I was in Lagos, my practice is that except you don't come with a domestic violence case, you will not go free. Once the woman reports it, the victim, the perpetrator will not go free. And it's the female folks that will come and meet me, the mothers of the girl, the mothers of the husband, the in-laws that will come and meet me that I want to destroy their home. And I had a practice then. I will ask them to go to the court of law to go and get an affidavit to say that they don't want the matter to go to court. By the time they bring the affidavit, I would say that, yes, I will still charge this matter to court, take the affidavit to court and let it be registered so that we know you have done this before. I received a lot of abuses. Policemen are like that do that. Thank God. It is almost 2 years now that I left the police after 35 years. The case of the fellow that killed his wife somewhere around the Ajao estate, the family was on my neck that we should drop that case because they had children for themselves. But we thank God that this year a conviction was gotten and that fellow was sentenced to death. The case of the school in Lekki VI, where a child was molested, the church, rose up to say that we want to destroy the church. We want to destroy the founder of the church. I'm also happy that in my retirement, they got judgment and sentenced that teacher to 40 years imprisonment. So these are things that it's one thing to blame the police, is another thing to understand the way our culture is. A female senior judge abused me, went to report me to the Oba of Lagos for standing against her son molesting his wife. But some of us, we stand fast and say, no, we will not allow this. I have daughters. I have sisters, I have mothers, and it is on the basis of that I work. With regards to getting judgment, a lot of things need to be done for the police. It's not just about capacity training them. Even when you take this matter to court, you have to go and get medical evidence. Someone has to pay for it. Those police fellows don't have the money with which to go and pay for medical examination. You get to the hospital, they will say you have to pay. Even when the girl that is violated don't have shelter, the police will not provide the shelter. There should be some people out there that will provide the shelter. Thank God we have people that are coming now, Mirabel, Sisiyara, and all those things that are providing shelter. Lagos State government is also doing that. Then when you get to the court itself, the people that are the perpetrators are big men. They have the money to employ senior advocates of Nigeria. The policeman, the prosecutor, the police lawyer that goes there, the senior advocate will come and rise and use all sort of technical things. The state must also support with regards to prosecution of this case. I'm talking from experience, and it's not just rhetoric.
Okay.
And of course, the Queen's College case.
Okay.
Where is it now? Just a minute. Where is the case now? Because the so-called teacher, I've forgotten his name. Everyone says is the best teacher in Queen's College or whatever. And I did say I think it was Mrs. Bola Tinubu that was also one of the people pursuing this case, including Dr. Daniel. And I said to them, you want to teach biology class? When we were young, when they want to teach us body parts of a woman, they would draw something on the blackboard. They will use stick to touch those things. But you now have all those psychedelic teachers. They stand in front of a girl and say, oh, I'm teaching something on mammary glands, like your breast. And they stand in front of a little innocent girl. Touch. Point to a breast or something like that. Why can't we, as big as Queen's College, let us get mannequins and whatever to teach all these things? So it's a whole lot of work we need to do. And as I said, I'm happy that we're talking about it. And when you start talking about something, a solution is fast approaching. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Leila, I know you want to talk, but I'll come back to you. This is Safe Space Conversations 2.0. We're looking at rape pandemic and how to combat it. I have 3 people who have their hands on, and I'm going to be reading the comments. Quite a number of people disagreed with you, Leila, on what you said about, yes, the men need to control themselves, but also that, dressing has nothing to do with it. Somebody said, why don't they rape mad people? Another person said they do rape mad people. So, the conversations is going on there. But I'm going to call on the 4 people that have raised their hands. Please keep your comments to maximum of 2 minutes. I'm going to take the 4 of you to talk at the same time. Then we go to our speakers. Bumi Oyinson. So I want you to unmute yourself and please keep your comment to 2 minutes maximum. Thank you, Bumi Oyinson.
Yeah. Enough has been said about women provoking men. I totally disagree, and I'm glad a lot of people have taken that up. But I want to talk from an area that I think I have some experience. I don't think enough is being done in our schools to protect children against not just rape, but all kinds of molestations. And I know it is possible. The government must insist on schools having a child protection policy, which can be easily enforced. I run 2 low-cost schools, and if I can afford to put somebody on who is a counselor, who is able to interact with kids, and even know when parents are shirking in their duties at home, you understand? All those highbrow schools can afford to actually protect children better. There are school inspectors. The school's child protection policy should involve things, should insist that schools report every incident, especially when it comes to a sexual nature. There are far too many children from low-income families who are living with guardians who are not their parents, who are being abused on a regular basis. There are even instances of brothers, abusing sisters. But with the schools can have somebody in place who is able to get the children to confide, even if they are not able to confide at home, and then must be compelled to report every case. Most schools, when it involves their teachers, do not report it because of the stigma it would, and then because they are also afraid that they would lose their students and things like that. But it's in place in a lot of countries, a child protection policy, you know, which criminalizes schools who do not report, you know. So it does not even have to get to the point of rape. A lot of it's not a pandemic. It's not something that is just happening. It's just that right now.
All right, thank you very much. I had to mute you because you have done your 2 minutes. So please, thank you very much. You've made valid points there. I'm going to call on Ike Odiawa. 2 minutes, please, my Ike, so we don't have to cut you off. Thank you. Please unmute yourself and talk.
I have. I'd like to add to what Mr. Osheni said. I was part of the core team who investigated the Queen's College issue at that time. And I must commend Mr. Osheni. All that he did in that time was true to what he said now, and he was very, very helpful. Layla too, we're all in the forefront together, if you remember. But I'd like to say something. As a fallout of that, recently, the daughter of the chairman of the PTA then in Queen's College came out to allege sexual harassment against one of the teachers in school then. And it came out. And she said she had the full consent of her mom. But at that time, when we were telling them, they were covering it up. They refused to believe the children. The children refused to come out. The students refused to come out because they were gagging them. They threatened them. There were some who spoke to us offline who said they wouldn't come forward. And I think that was the challenge Mr. Osheni had at that time. No one was willing to come forward. We need to let these children feel comfortable enough to speak about what's happening to them. I find that the families, the society are judging them so much, they wouldn't want to speak about it. They've stigmatized this sexual issues. So the children feel like, look, let me just crawl back into my shell. There's no need for me to say anything because no one's going to believe me. So I think it's a good thing that we're all speaking out. We have people who are thinking like we're thinking, and I hope something will come out of it. Something positive.
Thank you very much. So I'm going to call on Dr. Olumuyiwa. After Dr. Olumuyiwa, Folashade Aronsiola and Tope Ashi Sulaiman. Please all keep it to 2 minutes. Thank you. Dr. Olumuyiwa.
Oh, thank you very much. It has been very interesting. Kudos to Fatai Osheni, former commissioner, and every other person. I want us to look at the dimension of drug addiction. In the hospital where I supervise, people come in, it's not only young girls they rape. They go into places, they rape married women, these boys, once they are high on those drugs, they even rape grandmothers. It's such a very ugly development. We have to look into the kind of, especially some of those psychotropic drugs, that's the sex stimulating drugs. A lot of them are imported. There is no regulation. NAFDAC is not aware, especially those small joints. Once they take them, they are high. I have a girl, a 17-year-old girl in the hospital now, that somewhere from Ogun State. She finished school. She was working maybe like a clerical assistant somewhere. On her way home, a 28-year-old man maybe kind of seduced her. This man was high on drugs. And he brought a friend, the gang raped her to the extent that she developed a spinal cord injury. She can't walk now. Spinal cord transection. I don't know how you will, a 17-year-old girl, they will so bastardize her to the extent that she almost had a total transection of the spinal cord. So there is a dimension of drug addiction. That is what is fueling cultism and confraternities. These boys, when they take, and it's so available. So please, we still have to go back to the law enforcement agents that it's gone beyond training. Now, a mother, an average family would train their children, take them to church. This boy gets into university or gets into post-secondary institution. they get into this drug addiction. It's so terrible. I want us to look at it because it's unfathomable. The development is it's very depressing. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. So I have 3 more people to talk, but before you do, let's quickly go to Leila. If Leila wants to, and I know you wanted to talk, just respond to some of the comments here, some of the questions, and then I will go to Fatai Owoseni, then I will take more questions before we call it a day. So Leila, please.
Very briefly, I would still say that I do commend Mr. Owoseni for what he did in Lagos State, because he did quite a lot, but the fact remains that it's just a tip of the iceberg. It's continuing and continuing till tomorrow. That is a problem. Yes, when I spoke about 3 angles: the parents from the roots, and when the December 5th, 2015, Fashola opened up the sexual offenders register. We were all there. And one of the things that was said was that if any parent, anybody interferes with the cause of law, they themselves will be charged. So the problem is that the law is not allowed to take its rightful place because of cultural interference, the begging culture, and the corrupt culture, because somebody needs to take money from these big men for them to even be able to get away with it. If nobody takes money from them, if they put their foot down and say, we have to, this thing has to go to court, then it will begin to go down. But where there is corruption is when there is a taker, there is a giver, and there is a taker. So the police too still has a lot to do. And aside from drug addiction, there's pornography all over the place. There's the media, so many things, and we still take it back to the home. What are the values in the home? Where does it come from? And for the lady who spoke about the schools, the schools cover up a lot. I think the schools should come together and form a big association. The schools cover up a lot. The schools will not want anything to go out that will tarnish, in quotes. And Ike said it, we had a lot of problems during the Queen's College situation. It was terrible. We sat overnight. We were collecting things from UK, grown-ups that now could not speak. And even when one wanted to speak, the former Queen's College principal, they said we were witch hunting. So we ourselves were on one side. The police are the middle point there. And the police have all the rights to enforce the law, no matter what. If Mr. Owoseni can do it, that other people can do it. He stood his ground, and that's what we need to do. So I will keep quiet now as we talk about some more things.
All right, so I will take Fatai Owoseni, if you can just quickly respond to some of the things, if possible, in 2 minutes for me, so we can take more questions. Thank you very much, sir.
Okay, someone had talked about child protection policy. It starts from ensuring that adequate facilities are provided in the schools. No inspectors go to school to go and look at their facilities. Talk less of the kind of staff they employed. So it will start from that. And of course, I'm happy everybody is talking about Queen's College. It's polarized even the parents, and factions were created out of it. And everybody is just like looking for a way to blackmail each other. Then another thing I would like to mention is the fact that I keep on challenging our females. We shouldn't, females, we shouldn't look at ourselves as a weaker gender or whatever. If we want to compete for anything, let's compete as men we compete. Go to Singapore. There's nothing like giving one quota to this group or that group, either religious or based on gender. Everyone will compete equally. If we can teach our female children towards that, so that they won't go and apply for work, and when they are going for interview, the first thing, yes, I'm against people that think the way people dress. But the females themselves will say, I will use what I have to get what I want. And you see them, rather than reading and preparing for the interview they are going for, it is how to make up, how to wink at people. And they'll go and meet all those sick people there as well, who would get carried away with that nonsense. But our religious bodies as well, all these mad rush for powers, mad rush for money. For example, the case we had in Ibadan at Akinyele, I personally went to the police station to go and talk to the principal suspect. And it's the ritualists that asked him to go and be doing whatever he's doing. Just said, oh, look, when you get there, just do or something like that. All sort of things like that. Because they want power, they want money, the mad rush to have authority over what we leave behind. So our religious leaders need to speak to this as well. You have an alpha training somebody. The man has not even finished learning Fatiha, the 4th verse of the Quran. He has become a shehu with a big turban on his head. Somebody will go to church to say he wants to be a pastor. He has not finished anything. He's talking of 7 books of Moses to go and do one rubbish thing. A Babalawo is teaching someone whatever. The boy has not finished the tutelage. He already knows.
I need to interrupt you here because we have a few. I need to interrupt you. And the reason I'm interrupting you is because I'm coming to you. Now, there's been quite a number of comments here, but I want to pick one. And it's from Victoria Waifo. She said, I'm going to take the few people raising their hands, and I'm hoping that you can do it, shortly. Victoria said, please, how has the police... The reason I'm coming to you, Fatai, is because, the police seems not to be our friend in the case of gender-based issues and violence and rape. We, as Women Radio, we have our own instances of how women were further damaged in this instance. So Victoria Waifo says, how has the police as an institution helped to curb rape and other crimes against women? A woman was beaten black and blue by her husband. She reported to Women Radio, and we have evidence of the video. We supported her and reported immediately to the police with evidence justifying that her husband abused her in the area. Now, the police officer we met on duty helped, but the IPO told the woman, who is a woman, told the woman to kneel down and beg her husband. And she quoted the Bible, scriptures, to say she's not submissive. Now, the male police officer put the man behind the bars overnight. The following day, the female officer asked her to kneel down and beg the husband. So how can that woman get justice? This is the question Victoria is asking, and this is rampant as well, where the police will start telling you he's your husband and this and that. Please unmute yourself, Fatai. Thank you.
It's so sad. We continue to have that, and I've been sincere. Everyone knows me. I will say it as it is. We're not ready to have a police in Nigeria. That is number one. The police is not different from the society. It is the tradition, it is the culture. We must know who we are. They are part of the society. It takes the grace of God and the fear of God to stand to do the right thing. You cannot do the right thing if God is not behind you in this kind of settings we have. They are part of the society, and that is why all those things are coming up. We have few of them like that. And I mentioned last week this practice that even our women, our mothers, our fathers, the religious leaders feel that a man must be submissive. I have mentioned it. The last sermon of the Holy Prophet Muhammad is that you have a right over your women, so as your women have a right over you. You must educate your women. That was in the Quran. So what are we
Okay.
now talking about? Obnoxious practice, we must stop it.
Thank you. So I'm going to call on the three people here, Folashade Arosiola, Tope Ashi Sulaiman, and Margaret Ngozi Ukebu. Can you do 1 minute? Thank you. Folashade, you start.
Thank you, Ma. I want to ask a question, and it has to do with the last thing you just said now about the breach of trust on the part of the police. In some instances, you go to the police station with a rape case, and it is from the officer, the gender desk man, that would now tell the victim, the parent of the perpetrator, to go and begin to beg the victim. They make that difficult for you to pursue it, and they say you must settle out of court. Secondly, Ma, how do we address the issue of spousal rape? Most people do not believe that rape occurs between couples. They say it is not possible for a man to rape his wife, but it is happening day in, day
Thank
out.
you.
How do we address this issue?
Thank you. Bumi Oyinsan, Tope Ashi Sulaiman, over to you, please.
Okay, Tom, thank you very much. I just have a couple of questions. I'm not legally inclined, but I was just wondering, what's the victim's right, especially in instances where the family are trying to override or overturn the cases? Do we have any protocol in place to help the victims? Can a child turn around and say, you know what, I have a mind of my own, I'm grown enough, even though my parents want to kill this, I want to pursue it? Is there something we consider? Is there a means of provision of shelter for this victim, take them out of the environment? And also, I'm going to come back to the establishment of rehabilitation centers for both the perpetrators to basically commence reform, curb their level of depravity, and also for the victims as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Margaret Ngozi Ukebu, please.
Hello, good evening.
Please go ahead.
Yes. I just want to make a comment actually, because we keep talking about enforcing the law, but how can you enforce the law when the people that should actually enforce the law, do they really want to enforce it? You can't blame the police for everything, because even when these cases are taken to court, like most of the speakers have talked about, you find that the so-called perpetrators are trying to buy their way out of this, the crimes they've committed. And if the law enforcement agencies, I'm talking about generally, not just the police, do not want to enforce the law, then how can you enforce the law? Secondly,
thank you very much. Thank you. All
right, I just wanted to make another comment, because this thing we keep talking about are people not, education is key.
Please, can you
have churned out a lot of half-baked.
Minutes to end. Thank you.
We have a lot of half-baked educated people.
All right. Thank you very much. I'm going to take Guardian Talk with us and Sam, and that is it. Please do your comments in 1 minute because we need to wrap up. Thank you. Guardian Talk.
My comment is, what is in place right now for the police department to be trained in taking information and making the victim, be comfortable to do a report.
Thank you. Somebody spoke about marital rape. I think that is Arosiola. She spoke about marital rape. There is marital rape. How do we address that? Tope spoke about establishment of rehabilitation centers for perpetrators and victims. Reforms. She spoke about that. If you can talk about those two, Fatai will talk about victims' rights. And enforcing the law and family interfering and police not being trusted. So over to you first, Leila. Thank you.
Well, the lady who spoke, asking about reforms and everything, there are things in place, but like we keep saying, for it to be made manifest, for them to work it out. That is the problem. There is a glitch between the parents or the guardians or whatever and the police. Yes, police cannot do it all, but when it is a criminal offense, and I'll ask Mr. Owoseni, against the state, there are some criminal offenses that are against the state that when it comes forth, you cannot stop it. There have been situations like that even when they come and they say, no, we don't want to carry on with it, they cannot do that because it has passed that point. It becomes a state issue. As for reforms, unfortunately, it's only pockets of individuals that are actually doing all of that. The state has not actually got, for instance, somebody has a problem, and as the judge is adjudicating, they now say, okay, let the defendants, let the psychologists, let the therapists come in and let them go and see a therapist and things like that. It's not yet in place. I think Tokwe asked that. It's not yet in place. We're still fighting to get all these things in place. That's why even shelters are non-existent. We have individual NGOs who have, pockets of shelters, but in Lagos State, there's only one. How can you have one? There is another one, but there are correctional centers. There's a for girls and for boys. One in Ikeja, the other one in Surulere. It's not enough. Let's just say all these things that are required are not enough.
Thank you very much. Mr. Owoseni Fatai, I'm coming to you, and after you, we need to wrap up. So police trusted, and then victims' right and reinforcing the law. Thank you.
Yes, I want to say this. It's not just about me. When I was in service, whether you are a parent, be my mother, be my father, you come forward to that for such a thing, I will charge you for compounding felony. You can abuse me to anywhere. And I note there are some other officers that would do that in the police. Then we need, if we want enforcement, we need to, as you are building the capacity of the police, you must build the capacity of the judiciary as well. The snail speed with which these cases are handled is not also helpful. And all this advocacy, all this talk must focus on doing more with regards to what some few people are doing now. Maybe a fund will be set aside to do capacity training, to provide shelter, to protect witnesses, and to also be able to get quality legal representation for victims, because most of the abusers are very big people that can spend a whole lot of money with regards to legal representation. So if a fund is created, if a purse is created with which victims can be helped, with which the law enforcers can be helped, I think, and of course, a whole lot of education, I think we'll be working towards eradicating this. To the workplace and schools and institutions, just like the National Assembly is discussing it, they should look for people that have the experience. Within the United Nations, we have what is called C violation, sexual exploitative and abuses. That if you are a staff of the United Nations and you go work in all those war-torn countries, the people there are seen as vulnerable persons. So we should see our children in school as vulnerable persons, that people that don't have their own voice, and any teacher that violates them should be treated as violating the right of vulnerable persons. The same thing at workplaces. There are a whole lot of things to learn from the United Nations protocol, especially with this C violation. And the discussion must go on. And I think we'll be able to reduce and get over this.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Before you go, I've seen quite a number of comments here. They said you are dodging, Fatai Owoseni, you are dodging a particular question. Police is not our friend. Police is not to be trusted. Well, somebody is saying, no, I'm not right. But I'm looking at the comments here. Please, what do you have to say to that? How do we trust the police?
The police cannot be your friend when a whole lot of us, out of 10 persons that violate the law, 9 don't want to be prosecuted. So you compromise with them and they collect bribes. That is That is number one. Then number two, I don't think Nigeria is ready to have a police. If you have a police that you made a ragtag, that you don't even bother about their welfare, this will continue. So we must sit down in this country to say that we want a police. The people that would say that the police is not our friend, people that will say police are being used for this or that, they are the greatest abusers of that. People will sit down in the Senate and say policemen are carrying bags for people. Let them first drop their own orders. Anybody that is given any political position in this country, the first thing is you want policemen to follow you, you want policemen to follow your wife to the market, you want policemen to follow your children to school. It doesn't work like that. Nigeria police would hardly change if we don't say that. And like when I joined the police about 30-something years ago, the police wasn't like that. I worked with the United Nations as even a superintendent or chief superintendent of police. My salary was close to $22,000 in a month. And you come here, to pay you stipend. In retirement, you are punished. You are made to suffer. People work for 35 years, and when they retire, the gratuity is not more than 3 million or 3.5 million naira. Where do they do such a thing? So, and people must change. The police is from the society. If the police is not good, the society is not good. That's my take on that.
Thank you very much. Mr. Fatai Owoseni, I have quite a number of people clapping for you because you just said it. You said this to me 4 years ago and you're repeating it. Is Nigeria ready for real police officers? I'd like to quickly call on Titi Ojuri. Ojuri is our resource person. Titi Ojuri is our resource, in-house resource person, and Mojima Konjola. Sadly, Mojima Konjola can't join us today. So I'm going to call on Titi Ojuri to please just make your comment before we wrap up. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. What I'm just going to say is that charity begins at home. Whatever we want our society to be, it should start from home, irrespective of whether the police are doing their bit or not, or irrespective of whether the judicial system is not good or not. Parents need to bring up their children, and then they will grow to be the citizens that we want our country to have. So if we as parents don't do our bit, then what kind of children are we raising to grow up to be these police officers, to be these judges, to be all the people that we're talking about, the politicians, who are not making things to work for us in Nigeria? So my bit is, let us educate ourselves, let parents be able to bring up children that are comfortable to come to them and say, Mom, Dad, this is what happened to me at school today. Let them be able to come to us, not the kind of upbringing that we probably had with our parents where we're scared to tell them how we feel. But if we are telling the future generation to say, you know what, whatever happens, I'll be on your side. Come home, let me know what is going on, and I will support you. Because I know that, like we said, a lot of parents are not supporting their children. They are going to school to fight the teachers, to fight the principals, just because they are being disciplined, or because the parents are doing the teachers are doing something wrong, and the parents are saying, don't bring shame to the family. So please, my bit is, let us bring our children up in the way that we expect our society to be. Thank you.
All right. The takeaway for us today, I'll just quickly mention some of the things we were able to put together. Schools to have Nigerian schools to have child protection policy and to penalize schools who do not implement. Parents to be educated, not to interfere with justice. Drug addiction is something we didn't pick up. We didn't talk about that. Somebody mentioned drug addiction. I think he's saying that is something we need to look into. Religious leaders tasked to report and not interfere in any cases. Stop gagging and stigmatization. We need to condemn ritualistic needs. Need for reforms and rehabilitation centers for perpetrators and victims. Nigeria needs to be ready for the real kind of police. Parenting is key, and we need to raise boys and girls properly. I'd like to say a big thank you to Fatai Owoseni, former Commissioner Police, Lagos State. You are a thorough gentleman and a good, fine police officer. We know that. Thank you. Please unmute yourself. Thank you very much for joining us on today's conversations. We know
Thank you very much.
Yes, we know that when we call on you again, you will come. Leila
Madam, Mrs. Ujiri, thank you so much. Tope, it's nice to hear your voice, Dr. Daniel. Thank you so much for the contribution.
Thank you. Leila St. Matthew Daniel, advocate against domestic violence and abuse. You are a woman that somebody can talk to and you just address issues the way it should be. Thank you very much for joining us. Thank you for your knowledge and sharing with us here. We appreciate what you have done for us. Titi Ojuri, thank you very much, as always, for being a good resource center. Thank you to all the participants and have a good evening. Thank you. Bye-bye.
WFM 91.7.